Alright, so once again, our objective is to review the cell theory, which we just did, and to look at the parts, organelles basically, and the functions of cells. We're going to look at both plant and animal cells. Your essential question is, how do the similarities and differences between plant and animal cells relate to the similarities and differences in animals and plants? Now, looking at this plant cell, what you need to realize also is that not every single plant cell is going to look the same, meaning it's not going to be completely a square. Some of them are going to be a little more rectangular, okay? Some of them are going to be a little more squashed, but they will all have, for the most part, specific organelles, okay? Now, remember I told you yesterday that the organelles that you're responsible for are the ones that have the stars. So, just looking at this picture up here, are there any questions over those different parts? Now, on that case, really, in this, you just have to know what they look like. You have to. Just because on the test they could give you a diagram and they can ask you about the function of this part. So if they ask about the function of this part, then you need to know first that it's a vacuole. Then second, you need to know the function. Okay? So, looking at the functions, this is what I want to do. As we're looking at these functions, I really want you to go through and either highlight or underline the key word for the definition. Because truthfully, if you come in and you look at nucleus, brain of cell, contains chromosomes and DNA. Alright, really, you really want to memorize all those words. So when you do notes like this, when you're looking at definitions, you want to find keywords. You want to find that one or two words that's going to make you remember what that organelle does. So, looking at the nucleus, the brain of a cell contains chromosomes, DNA. Truthfully, I did that first one for you. You should underline chromosomes, DNA. That's what the nucleus, that's why the nucleus is important, because it has the chromosomes and the DNA. And the chromosomes and DNA code for or give you what?
Genes. They give genes.
They give you their genes. And what do the genes do for you? They give you your traits. So, they give you your characteristics, right? It's the reason why your eyes are blue or brown. It's the reason why you're, to a certain point, tall or short. Okay? It's the reason why some of you are more likely to maybe have heart issues or diabetes because it runs in your family. All right? That information is all coded in the DNA. Yes? Intelligence can go into it. Not completely, because the environment also plays a role into it. But yes, your genetics also has to do with your ability to think, to process, and things like that. Yes. Yes.
So how smart you are is
Not completely. Just like I said, to your height, to a certain point. To a certain point, yes, your brain has more abilities, but remember we talked about how, when we talked about the nervous system, that your brain is always able to learn? So you can train your brain to think faster. So yes, you are born with a specific ability, but you can also train your brain to think faster, to be smarter, because the more you learn, the more connections it's going to make, the smarter you are, truthfully, because the faster the information could be sent through your brain. So like I said, your genes control certain things, but your environment after you're born also controls them. Like for example, a person can be naturally talented in music, but if they don't practice playing an instrument or they don't practice singing, will they be good? No. Another person could maybe not be born with as much talent, but if they really practice it, then they can become better than the person that had natural talent. So, what you need to think about is when we think of genes, they code for a specific amount of our characteristics. But once we're born, our environment also is going to play a role. And we're going to talk about that when we get to heredity, hopefully at the end of the period, if not tomorrow. Okay? So, any other questions over the nucleus? Yes?
It didn't need to do it. This
Okay.
is on 122 and 123, right?
Yes, 122 and 123. Alright, ribosome makes proteins and lipids. What do you think your key word or words are going to be?
Proteins and
Proteins.
lipids.
And let me tell you, they're probably going to ask about this one. Proteins. Think ribosomes, think proteins. Beans. Meat. Okay? That's fish. Anything that's proteins, think ribosomes. The ribosomes are the ones that basically make the proteins. They make your muscles. Mitochondria uses oxygen to make energy. It's a powerhouse. Key word. Powerhouse or energy. So your mitochondria is basically what produces the energy in your system. Whenever you eat food, all those nutrients, the reason you're eating is to get the chemical energy from food, right? So all those nutrients and so on go in. The mitochondria is the one that goes through a process called cellular respiration in order to use oxygen and use the energy to power your body. Chloroplast contains chlorophyll that changes sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into glucose and O2. So that's a big one, but what can you think about chloroplast?
Make sugar.
It makes sugar. What else?
O2.
O2, but make sugar. So it makes sugars what type of energy? Chemical energy. So it makes chemical energy. The other word that I do want you to make sure you know is this chlorophyll, because we've seen it before. Chlorophyll is just the green pigment inside that makes it green. The reason that the plant is green is because it has chlorophyll, it's a pigment. And that pigment allows the chloroplast to change the sun's energy into glucose, which is chemical energy. So here you also need to remember there's a transformation of energy, which we haven't gotten to, but you talked about last year and the year before, where you're changing solar energy or light energy into chemical energy. Yes?
If it wasn't there, there would be no plant.
I'm sorry?
If the chlorophyll wasn't there, then what would
It
happen?
wouldn't be green.
Wouldn't be green. But-
And the photons, which are the sensors, wouldn't be able to
so then
change
It wouldn't be any
energy.
plants.
No. There'd be plants, but it wouldn't be plants that are making any oxygen. So we won't be here either. Alright, the vacuole, it stores water, provides turgor pressure. Key word.
Sugar pressure. Right.
Stores.
Stores what?
Water.
Water. Stores water. Now, what this turgor pressure basically means is provide what's pressure?
Kind of
Kind of like how much air.
Together. Practically.
It's something that's pressing or pushing on something else, right?
like,
If I come over and I start pushing on air, and does he feel pressure from my hand?
yeah.
Yes.
Is it
Okay,
a-
so it's kind of like a push. It's something pushing on it. Now, turgor pressure is the pressure of water inside of the plant. If you ever seen a plant wilt, and if you don't know what the word wilt means, make sure you know because I've seen it on tests. Okay, a plant that wilts basically means that it's a plant that is dying, right? Plants usually stand straight up, and why do they stand straight up?
Because the
Sun.
Well, the stem, but why? Why does it have to stand straight up?
it's sunlight.
Because it wants to get the sunlight, right?
So it tilts toward
Okay.
the sun.
So it tilts towards the sun. A lot of plants do that. Now, the reason it's able to do that is because of the stem, right? Now, when you cut it, if you don't put it in water, doesn't it start kind of drooping over to one side? The reason for it is because when you cut it and there's no water being pumped up the stem, these vacuoles shrink. So if they shrink, they're not providing pressure. If you look, this is pretty big, right? And truthfully, it tends to be bigger than that. I just didn't draw it so big just because I needed you to see all this stuff. But this stuff usually is like really, really packed in because this bag is really, really big. And what it's doing, it's pressing on the outside and providing pressure, keeping this wall and this cell very, very sturdy. So if I cut a plant, it doesn't have any more water going through it, it loses turgor pressure, it's going to wilt. Now, a lot of times, if I take that same plant and I put it in water, it will stand straight up again for, a few weeks because it doesn't have any roots, so eventually it's going to die. But it can stand straight up for, a few more days or a week or so because it's still kind of sucking up water. You ever seen those flowers where you can put into color water and then the flower turns a different color? Reason for it is because the stem is still absorbing water from down there, and if you color the water, it also takes the color with it. That's why the flower changes color. Yes?
We don't have that in animal cells, right?
No.
Why
We
not?
have vacuole, but it's not that big.
Do we not need it?
Yeah. We don't need the turgor pressure. So you're right. Yes, we have vacuoles, but the vacuole in an animal cell is not as big, and we're going to see that in just a second. But the vacuole in plant cells is very big because it has to provide this pressure. Okay? Cytoplasm is just a fluid that holds your organelles. So what can our keyword there be? Fluid. Okay? Cell membrane controls things from coming in and out. Controls. Okay? So basically it controls in and out. It controls what goes in, it controls what comes out. And the cell wall provides support and gives it shape. It's made out of cellulose. So what would be keywords there?
Support, shape.
Shape, provide shape, or support. Okay? So just make sure that you know those and you know what they look like on the cell. So, any questions over this one? Alright, we're moving on to the plant cell. I'm sorry, the animal cell. Same thing, if you look at it, the stars are the ones that you need to know. You're going to realize that several of them are similar to the ones in plants, but they look a little different. So any questions about the picture before we go into the keywords? Alright, so looking at the functions, the nucleus, brain of cell contains chromosome DNA. Is that the same exact thing as the plant cell?
Yes.
So your keyword should be the same. Okay? And that's a similarity. Cytoplasm, gel-like fluid, holds organelles. Same thing in the other one? The plant cell? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah. So what would be my keyword here again? Fluid. Okay? Mitochondria use use oxygen to make energy. It's a powerhouse.
Energy.
Energy, powerhouse. So the mitochondria here is exactly the same as the mitochondria in the plant cell. The difference is the way the mitochondria gets its oxygen here is you breathe it in, right? And your energy is being transferred from the food you eat, right? In the plant, the first step is the chloroplast changes the light energy to chemical energy, right? And then that chemical energy goes to its own mitochondria to give energy to the plant. We don't have that chloroplast, so we're getting our energy from food. Yes?
We're already getting our, if the plant's already getting energy from the chloroplast.
But
Why
see,
did
that's what you need to make sure you understand. Yes, it's transforming the energy from light to chemical, but that chemical energy then needs to be used, right? The mitochondria is basically what's able to make it into a usable energy that the plant uses to grow. That's why it needs both of them in there. Okay. Cell membrane, gatekeeper, controls things coming in and out. Same key word, right? Which would be what?
Control.
Controls. Okay. Ribosome makes proteins and lipids. Keyword, protein. Vacuole, it's small storage, it's basically a storage bag for needed substances and waste. So here, the vacuole keyword for vacuole would be what? Storage. So in plants, the vacuole was for water and provides pressure. in animals, you have vacuoles, but they're used for storage. So they store stuff, mostly waste, until the cell is able to get rid of it. Okay? They take it over to the Golgi bodies. So the vacuole takes it over to Golgi bodies, then the Golgi bodies kind of packages it, and then the little pieces of Golgi bodies. So these little pieces are kind of bud off, and they go over to the cell membrane, and it basically just kind of, think of it pooping it out. But it can poop it out anywhere. Okay? Yes?
What would happen if we had like some of the stuff the plant had, like chloroplast and like?
Well, we had chloroplast, would be green.
Could be.
You would not be, you wouldn't have to eat,
It'd be awesome.
right?
What about like the
Because
cell wall?
You just go outside and sun. Okay.
Green tan.
So if you really think about think about it, if you had a cell wall, would you be able to move?
No.
No.
You just stay there.
You'd be this rigid, because the cell wall makes the cell rigid. Our cells don't have a cell wall, so we have movement, correct?
Yeah.
Now, if we did have a cell wall, would our cells be able to flex and move as much as it needs to? I mean, just think of a plant. A plant, yeah, it can sway, it has a little bit of give, but if you really think of a plant, if you take any plant and you put pressure, more pressure, it kind of bends to a certain point, but eventually once you get to a certain point, what does it do? It breaks,
Snaps.
right? Snaps in half. So you want to think about those things, and that's an awesome question. You know, what if a animal had some of those things that the plants do? Would that animal be able to do the things that it does? Or what extra things would that animal be able to do? Which brings us to our essential question is, what are the similarities and differences between animal cells and plant cells, and how do those things relate to the differences between an animal and a plant? That's an awesome question, because it relates to your essential question perfectly, which is where we're going to go to next. Okay? So, any remaining questions of the parts? Okay, so I need you to open up your notebook to page 125, which is the notes that we're going to take today.
You gonna keep them together?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it going. So remember, page 124 is your folded 2. Okay, that's where you're going to be putting it in there. But on page 125, you have your essential question. Okay, how do the similarities and differences between plant and animal cells relate to the similarities and differences between animals and plants? And Antonia's question brings us perfectly to what we're going to talk about today. So if you look, this is how I'm setting up my notes. Does it mean that you have to do it this way? No. You can do a bullseye for your notes. You can do a Venn diagram for your notes. Either or, however you want to do it. Okay? Now, we're doing notes a little bit differently because I'm going to stop talking. This is how you're going to do your notes for today. Is you're going to talk to your partner, to your table partner, bless you. And you're going to go back and look at the pictures that you drew of the plant cell. Look at the pictures that you drew of your animal cell. And you're going to come up with the similarities and differences. And you can do that just by looking. Also, you can do that by thinking of what an animal does and what a plant does. So, if you look, I didn't put plant cell, animal cell. I put plant and I put animal. You can think about the differences between what you know about that plants can do and what you know that animals can do or not do. So, on this key chart or Venn diagram or whatever you're doing, I want you to write down everything that is similar to both plants and animals and the differences to plants and animals. Okay? I'm going to give you about 10 minutes and then we'll come together and share our list. Okay? So, any questions of what you're doing? So I should hear you talking. These are your notes. You're basically doing your Cornell notes, but you're doing them by discussing these different things that, truthfully, most of you already know. Okay?